Hello everyone, this is Pedro from Pythalista with one more video. Today I'm talking about the V2 programming model for Azure Functions using Python. Programming model V2 became available in October 2022. It's about, let's say, 7 months ago. And I wanted to just do a bit of a comparison of the current model that's been there for a while and this programming model V2. And I'll show the motivation behind this improvement that Microsoft think obviously is an improvement. And what are the advantages of the V2 compared to the current one. But before going to the programming model V2, I think it's very important to recap a important concept of Azure Function that I'm gonna demonstrate here in this slide that I found on the internet. And it kind of like give an example of what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the concept of trigger and bindings. So a trigger is an essential part of a function. A function cannot exist without a trigger. A trigger is what makes the function run or start running. And the bindings is a way where you can declarative have access to resources in Azure and access to this data. It's optional, but it's a way to seamlessly integrate resources in Azure. Have we understood these concepts? So let's go and explore a little bit about the differences and the benefits that the V2 programming model brings to Azure functions. So basically, according to this article here, which is quite good, was published right after it became public preview. So article from Shreya Batra, I'm just giving him all the credit. So and then as it says in the documentation and in this article, it shows those four benefits of the V2. So the first benefit here is the folder structure. It brings a simplified folder structure. You can see that there is less files to worry about, and then it's also bringing a more Pythonic way to write functions. If you are experienced of writing Python, it becomes more Pythonic. And it uses a decorator, which is a way to add functionality to an existing function. So, and with the decorator that I'm just gonna go into detail more into a demo, it eliminates the necessity of having to have a init, a folder with the name of the function, and also this function.json file where you in a declarative way, you declare the triggers, the input and output, if it's in or out. So which kind of like it goes outside of what's programming in Python. So first one is it makes it simpler in terms of folder structure and number of files. Another concept that it brings is what they call blueprints. If you know Flask, the blueprint, it's kind of the same. It's not the same class, but it's the same concept. It's a way to better organize your project into folders and different modules or files. And then it makes your code more extensible. So I've talked about decorator based inputs and triggers, and also it also make it much more easier access to documentation if you are using a IDE like VS Code and you are using type hints, and then it makes easier to access documentation. I will show you here as you hover over the methods and the attributes of a class, you can have access to the documentation right in the IDE, in this case, VS Code. Okay, without further delay, let's get started with a demo. So you can go through here and there's more detail on the internet in the documentation, which I'm going to put everything on the description. So the prerequisites to start this demo are, so let me just clean that thing. So I have a folder with nothing in it. Uh, it is just a blank one, and then I have the VS Code. So the prerequisites for this one, obviously you will need VS Code, and also you have to install the Azure extension. And uh, for this demo, we don't need to have a Azure subscription because I'm not going to deploy, but you do have to have in your system installed the Azure Core Func Tools, the latest version. So the version 4 I have here. So I have version 4.0.5174. It's gonna work with this version. Even some versions 4 will not work. It's better to have the latest one, at least this one from this video. It will work. Another prerequisite is a storage emulator. So you can use a storage account, but I'm using the storage emulator called Azure. So Azure. So install this one as well because we'll need that for the demo. So let's get started. So first thing that you need to create a function is very simple, it's very quick. You just click in the Azure extension, and then in the workspace, you click on this plus sign here, and then you click the folder, which is the current one. But instead of selecting the Python as you used to select before, you choose Python Programming Module V2, and then it's loading. And then you select an interpreter. In this case, I have 3.9 or 3.10, and the version 2 on the core tools version 4 also supports 10, but let's just use 9 that I've already used. And then what happens here, it creates a boilerplate of a project in the version 2, which you can see here. It's much more simplified. It has got a README file with like how to get started. And then it starts with this file called function underscore app.py. This is the entry point for the V2. Previously, you had to have, I have here one opened. You had like a folder when you created boilerplate, and inside this folder you had like a init.py file, a function.json file to just declare the bindings of that function. So the new one is much more simplified. So let's uncomment this code here. And it's pretty much, if you see that part of the function as compared to the version 1, is exactly the same. So what's the difference here is that you import this func.func function app, and then you start this variable, and then that's a decorator, where a decorator is it's like a function, take a function as an argument and then add functionality to this function. So for example, this first one here, the decorator app.function name, and then you pass the name of the function. That's going to be the name of the function. It doesn't matter how you call this one, and then you don't need to have a folder here. That function will be called HTTP trigger 1. You can call it HTTP trigger hello, whatever you want here. And then you can call this as a normal Python function. And the second decorator, it tells you what's the trigger. In this case, it's a HTTP trigger. The word here is route. I don't know why. And the name of the route is going to be hello. And then that's pretty much it. So this function here, let's make a little bit of a change so that we can see in the terminal when it runs. So let's put a little bit of an emoji here. I like to use the rocket, and let's put 2 rockets. So And then you can see in the terminal easier because it's kind of blue, and then you cannot visualize. Let's put 3 rockets. Okay, this function is a HTTP trigger where I'm gonna pass an argument called name, and then in this argument, that's gonna return as the name of the person as an argument, and these 3 little rockets. If I don't pass the argument, it's gonna still succeed, but it's not going to pass the name because it didn't take that as an argument. So let's run this function. To run this function, you just press F5. And then it says here that needs to connect to our storage. You can use a storage account if you have one, but if you don't have, use a local emulator. To lose the local emulator, as I said, you have to, I'm just gonna cancel this one. You have to have the Azure it here. And then I have already it installed. And then to start it, I think I have the command palette, which is Control-Shift-P. Let's see. Yeah, can you see Azure it start? Yeah, it started. And then now I can press F5. And then instead of using connector storage account, I use local emulator. And then that should launch the function. And then you can see here, the name of the function is HTTP trigger hello, as I called here. And the route here is hello. So if I wanted to make a request to this endpoint, and then I'm gonna use that extension here called Thunder Client, and just delete that. And then I do a new request, and I pass argument called name, and then I'm just gonna put my name here, and then send. And then it says, hello Pedro, this HTTP trigger function executed successfully. All right, so that's the programming model V2. But let's do another one. Let's do a schedule function. But now instead of having the main file, this one, the function app, let's put in another file and do a blueprint to demonstrate it. So let's first stop this running server here. And then I'm gonna use the Azure Function extension here to make my life easier. So if I click here and then I want a time trigger, and I wanted that to be appended in the function.py file here, and then it's saved here. But what I'm doing here, I'm just gonna Control X to just cut, and then I'm gonna create a new file. Let's create a new folder called, let's say I wanted to put that in a different module. So, and then inside that module, I'm just gonna create a file called another, just to have something. And then I'm just gonna paste that. And then I'm just gonna make sure that I have all the imports. For the blueprint, so this one I would need the datetime. Yeah, and then I'm just also going to, in logging as well. Okay. And also I need to create the object here, which is it's the same object, that one. But I'm not going to call app because I don't want it to have a clash of namespaces. So let's import func as well. So I'm just gonna call it route. I think that's the convention that we use in Flask. And then I'm just gonna replace that with route. Cool. I think that's it. The only thing that we need to do now is to register that in the main entry point. So if I go here and I do app and then dot, I think it's register. I don't know why the IntelliSense is not working. I think is from module, another import route. Then I'm just gonna make sure that I'm using the right method here to register. So if I go into documentation and blueprint, yeah, this needs to be a blueprint. Sorry, I made a mistake here. And it's gonna be register functions. Okay. So this one should be a blueprint. And then I'm gonna call it route. And then here, I think it's register. Register function. And then it's gonna be route. Should work. If not, we make it work. So app register functions with S. No, it should work, I think. Just put this import here at the top, and I'll put this one here. Just gonna put, I like to put all the internal parts, the third-party library and the standard library at the top. Yeah, I think that's gonna work. So just going quickly here, this function is going to be called my timer, and then I'm having a schedule trigger here with a schedule that's gonna run every 5 minutes. Just because we're not going to wait for 5 minutes, let's put that every 5 seconds. That's gonna be running a lot. So, and then let's log a little bit of a emoji here. Let's put some smiley face here. And then we can see every 5 seconds that's gonna fire up. Let's do it. So F5. And if I didn't make any mistake, that's gonna start running. Yeah. So Python time triggering functions run, and then 5 seconds later runs again and runs again and runs again. So that's pretty much it. So if you wanted to understand more about Cron Tab, there are this website called Cron Tab Guru. So the only difference in between the Linux Cron Tab and the Azure Cron Tab is pretty much the same. But the Microsoft one, for some reason, they put an extra asterisk that does every second. So this one from Linux, it's from it. You cannot run anything less than 1 minute. It's the minimum time is 1 minute, but in Azure you can do every second. So in this case, every 5 seconds. So just to finish, there are some limitations of the Azure Function V2 that you can see on that website here, this documentation. And one of the limitations are and workarounds are you cannot do multiple Python workers. You cannot load file or assembly. It's unable to resolve Azure Storage Connection name storage. And there are some issues with deployment. So it's not ready for production yet, but feel free to test and give feedback to Microsoft in GitHub and on the issues list. I'm doing it myself, and I'm gonna do and test and see how it is because I think it's an improvement. If you want to know more about Core Function 2, how to get installed, I have this page here that I'm gonna put it. And that's it. There's another resource that I would like to point you to. There is this video here from YouTube, Azure Fridays, where they've done a demo 3 months ago about the programming model V2, which I really highly recommend. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for your time. I hope you enjoyed the video. So if you have any questions, just put in the comment below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give a thumbs up to this video and click the bell. Thanks for watching. See you next time.